Hi everyone, my name is Sophie Lou Yarn and I am pleased to welcome you to the inaugural episode of the Dirtbag Test Kitchen, a Boston Hassle cooking show. So here we focus on New England culinary history, and sometimes the food we make will be delicious, sometimes it'll be terrifying, and sometimes it'll be tantalizingly weird. As most of you know, this regional area is not necessarily known as a foodie's paradise, and hopefully over the course of this show we can maybe figure out why, and even maybe try to subvert that stereotype a bit. Or not, we'll have to see. Today, to kick things off with a bang, we are going to be making, drumroll please, pizza. Now, I know some of you may be thinking, isn't pizza from Italy? And that's where you'd be dead wrong. Just kidding. Now, across the country, there are a lot of variations on the classic Italian grease and cheese bomb that we're all familiar with. You have the New York slice, you have Chicago deep dish, you have whatever the fuck they have in LA, and it's all very polarizing stuff. People will get into serious fights over which regional slice is the best. Families have been torn apart. It seems like the one thing that everybody can agree on is the fact that the New England regional slice, aka Greek pizza, is the absolute worst. So I want to examine this unilateral distaste for Greek pizza, and we're going to be doing just that on today's episode. We'll also be going into a bit of the history of Greek immigration to the region in order to determine how a non-pizza eating people became the face of New England pizza arts and sciences. And this recipe comes from J. Kenji López-Alt of SeriousEats.com's The Food Lab. And a disclaimer for those who don't know, Greek pizza doesn't actually refer to the toppings, like stuff like artichokes or olives or spinach. It actually refers to the fundamentals, your crust, your sauce, and your cheese. And people tend to dislike Greek pizza because of its, quote, cardboard crust, its sauce that's overloaded with oregano, and its pounds and pounds of rubbery cheese, which doesn't do that nice, satisfying pull when you break the slices apart. It just kind of breaks. It's anticlimactic. We are going to start with the crust right now. So the crust itself has been described as thinner than a deep dish and thicker than a Sicilian, aka like a North End style slice. It's pretty similar to focaccia bread, and it's made pretty similarly too, as we'll see. Instead of being floured and tossed, it gets oiled and very briefly stretched, and instead of baking on a stone or a flat sheet, it gets just put into a cast iron pan. The result should be like crisp on the edges and bottom, but like soft and chewy where the crust meets the sauce. And that's the desired outcome, and it's a rarity, but we're shooting for it anyway. So the first thing to do is combine 2.5 cups of flour and a teaspoon of instant yeast with a tablespoon of kosher salt. I'm gonna do that real quick. Once it's in, we're gonna whisk it until it's combined. The recipe that I got this from said until it's homogeneous, so you can tell me, does that look homogeneous? So now we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of olive oil and some water, and then we're just gonna stir with a wooden spoon to combine. This is one of those things also, if you're making it, you really just wanna eyeball. It shouldn't be as wet and shiny as regular crust because we're not trying to get too much elasticity, like that stretch. But I demoed this recipe recently and I found that they didn't have as much water. So just until it comes together fully, but in a kind of flaky, crumbly way. I'll show you. This is where, if I was a good cooking show, we would talk about like gluten bonds and other chemical reactions, but I don't know about it. I just know about the pizza. So once it comes together, we're gonna let it rest for 8 to 24 hours. Well, that's a wrap. Sorry, everybody. Okay. Just kidding again. We got a spare one, dummy. Let's get it out. So as you can see, we don't have any plastic wrap in the Dirtbag Test Kitchen. We've used 2 opened plastic bags and a rubber band, but I would suggest plastic wrap for the home cook anyways. After 8 to 24 hours, we are going to turn out this dough ball onto a lightly floured surface. We're gonna roll it and then we're gonna divide it into 2 separate balls, but we're only gonna roll it a little bit. All right, I'm gonna divide them in half, I guess. So once we have our 2 separate balls, we're going to put them into 2 separate oiled bowls. And because we're only making one today, we are just going to get rid of this one. This one, again, you're going to want to cover in plastic wrap. And like I said, we don't have any. So, okay.
Continue. Yeah.
Dirtbag!
Dirtbag, sorry.
So now we're going to make the sauce. Folks seem to have a wide variety of issues with Greek pizza sauce, and I think that that has to do with a lot of the individual variations among different pizza houses, and none of them really ever wind up tasting Italian. To me, Greek pizza sauce has a lot of oregano, and it's thick and pretty, like, even textured, but it has a sort of sweet metallic taste that you get from the tomato paste we're going to be using. So let's start out measuring. I started using garlic, whatever, minced garlic, and never looked back. So anytime somebody recipe says mince up some fresh garlic, I have to laugh. All right, 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So the thing is, I never thought Greek pizza was bad when I was growing up. I just was totally surrounded by it, and I never thought twice. I feel like it's that way for a lot of people from New England. Like, this is pizza for us, and then of course a reckoning comes the first time we ever go to like Bertucci's, and we have this moment where we realize how pizza is supposed to taste, and that it's better than okay. It's pizza, you know? Pizza is everything, and it's just, imagine having that discovery in a Bertucci's. So we're going to start by heating up some olive oil, which I've already done, and then we're going to infuse it with garlic and dried oregano and red pepper. So then after about 30 seconds, we're going to add our tomato paste lump and stir it in for another minute. Now we're going to take our can of crushed tomatoes and we're going to add that in. Some nice plops. And we're going to reduce it on the burner by setting it to low, and we're going to let it go for about an hour, stirring it occasionally, and in the meantime we're going to go back to the crust. So the crust has to rise one more time, but this time it's going to go into the pan for an hour with a more loose covering like a clean dish towel. So to get ready for that, we are going to set the oven to a whopping 500 degrees with the oven rack in the bottom position. We're going to get out some kind of heavy skillet. I'm using my roommate's cast iron, and we're going to coat it with 2 types of fat, Crisco and olive oil. But first, we're going to stretch the dough a little bit. So we're taking it out. I have a lot of good memories as a kid that took place in pizza houses. The seats are like plastic or wood with that kind of fading varnish that you can scratch off with your fingernail. And you get 3 shaker jars of the cheese and oregano and the red pepper. A lot of sweaty dudes and hairnets behind the counter, that's a must. And there's one in every town. And that has a lot to do with Greek immigration. So I'm just taking the Crisco and doing a light dusting that is progressively getting a little heavier. We're doing this so that there's like some sizzle and crackle in the crust, and it doesn't just become this like cakey, sort of wet, what do they say on the Great British Baking Show? A soggy bottom. And the olive oil is apparently just a little bit of extra insurance for that. Oh my God, it's so greasy. Okay. Immigration laws relaxed in '68, which more than doubled the number of immigrants per year, something from like 5K to 11K. Large-scale Greek immigration pretty much ebbed by the 80s, but by then there was an established and thriving Greek culture in the Northeast, and Michael Dukakis was a thing. By 2000, the US Census reported that Boston to Worcester to Manchester had the second highest density of Greek Americans in the country, so that's cool. Obviously, New York has to be number one at everything. We gotta do the cheese now, so let's do the cheese now. So you're gonna use your standard mozzarella, but you're gonna use half of what you normally use because one more surprise feature of Greek pizza is that there is a 1-to-1 ratio of mozz and cheddar. The cheese on Greek pizza is definitely kind of tangier and saltier than the Italian pizza, and it definitely announces its flavor more. So I've got 8 ounces of mozz, I've got 8 ounces of cheddar, and I'm gonna put in 3 ounces of feta. Our friend Kenji at Food Lab snuck some Parmigiano Reggiano into his recipe, but I remember that some of the really good Greek pizza places around me put feta into their cheese blend, and I don't have Parm money these days, so feta it is. All right, as we grate, we are gonna ask ourselves, how did Greek immigrants come to take over pizza parlors in New England in the first place? Well, according to the New England Historical Society and Donna Gabaccia's book, We Are What We Eat, it all started in Connecticut right after World War II, where a number of Italians were retiring from the pizza game. According to Gabaccia and others, a Greek-Albanian pizza house owner working in Connecticut sort of invented Greek pizza in 1953. Basically, he made the decision to make a full day's supply of crust instead of rolling them out to order. And I guess, in essence, Greek pizza really is about the crust in that case. This man's idea definitely caught on, and by the end of the 70s, about 40% of pizza houses in Connecticut were Greek-owned, and 76% of Greek families were in the pie business. So let's get this thing in the oven already, because we're burning daylight. Here's how we're gonna do it. So we're gonna take our slightly leavened dough. We're gonna ladle the sauce on top. And then we're gonna do the cheese. So you take your sauce, spread it around, and then divide the pile of cheese between each pie. And don't forget, the hallmark of Greek pizza is it makes you realize that yes, there is such a thing as too much cheese, and it is a sobering experience. All right, let's do that cheese now. Is that enough cheese, kids? No! I'm feeling that. All right, we're gonna stick this fancy fella in the oven for 15 to 20 minutes. And when it comes out, we're gonna carefully check the bottom for doneness with a metal spatula or something similar, and oven mitts. If it hasn't browned up all the way, then Kenji López-Alt suggests taking the whole thing out and setting it over an open flame, which I think is nuts, so maybe just try living with it.
Pizza time.
I've been really trying, baby. Trying to hold back this feeling for so long. All right, your pizza's done, and now you get to be the judge of whether or not Greek pizza deserves its reputation, or if maybe it's just the unsung hero of New England cuisine. So thanks for joining me, thanks for learning with me, thank you for your continued support of the Boston Hassle, and a very special thank you to any Greek pizza house owners who may have been watching. No childhood party would have been complete without y'all, so thanks for the memories. Let's see what this looks like.
Oh yeah.
Sizzling. Set it down. Just gotta get. So I don't really feel like checking underneath and then putting it over an open flame, as the recipe suggested. I think it's gonna be okay. It's bubbling, the cheese looks good, it's got a very doughy smell, which probably comes from the dough. And let's get another closer whiff. Come on, fog up my glasses. It's oregano-y as hell. That's how you know you did it right. As soon as humanly possible, I'm gonna be putting my entire face in this, and I, for one, don't care if it's bad or not because I am hungry. So, thank you very much, everybody. I'm Sophie Lou Yaron. This has been the Dirtbag Test Kitchen. I will see you next month.